Now, this is not a political book. It doesn't take a political position, left or right, Corbyn, pro-Corbyn, against Corbyn. One of the most obvious things that I noticed recently, let's say when Trump was elected or was gaining popularity, was that what we tend to see as utopia, which is the dream of the left of having a better world, for most people translates into nostalgia. This is the reason that Trump won. Trump promised the Americans, to make America great again. The reason that we are so excited by Corbyn, or some of us, is for the same reason. It feels like something we had before, kind of an old style lefty. This is exactly the same thing that was exciting about Obama. In the old days, this gravity, it has nothing to do with the book. In the old days, we used to believe that politicians are somehow an extension, the political universe is an extension of our wills, our whims, and so on and so on. It is clear to us that by now we have been reduced into consumers, and the role of the politicians is just to sustain consumption. They usually do it by means of credit. We were buying a lot of things with money we thought we had, and in 2008 we realized that we were buying it in money we never had. The best way to describe it metaphorically, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll just do that and we can move on, is just think of those skyscrapers in the city of London, in Frankfurt, in New York. They are made of glass. They convey an image of transparency. You can see what is happening in there, Goldman Sachs, Soros, JP Morgan. But when you really get close to these buildings, you realize that the glass is a mirror, and when you try to peep in, all you see is yourself left out in the street, in the cold. Now, I have an anecdote, because it works, this metaphor works very well, but the other day, we were in the city, Tali and myself, and she pointed out that it's actually not mirrors, it's actually transparent. So this is actually, I thought I'll have to mention it. The issue is, actually you can see what is happening in, but you're left out still. All right? We are left out, we are impoverished, and this is the condition that I try to understand. How is it possible that such a huge transformation took place and it wasn't discussed by academia, by our political institutions, by the media? Do you need a saxophonist really to tell you what is going around you? It's quite sad. Okay, sorry.
One of the things you draw attention to in the book is two different ways of thinking, one represented by Athens and the other by Jerusalem. Can you help us understand what those two ways are and how they relate to post-politics?
Yeah, it is very, very crucial point. I think that if you want to summarize this book into 3 words, it is all about Athens versus Jerusalem. Athens is the birthplace of philosophy, science, thinking. In Athens, we think things through. It's the birthplace of poeticism, beauty, aesthetics. Jerusalem, on the other end, is the city of revelation. Jerusalem is the city of 10 commandments. Do that, don't do that, don't do that, do that. What happened to us? And it's quite devastating. Athens was defeated. And for quite a while, we are living under the helm of Jerusalem. If you look at Tony Blair, and you try to verify how many new laws were inflicted on us by Lord Goldsmith, you understand the meaning of Athens. Now, the meaning of Jerusalem. Now, Athens versus Jerusalem, it's not Jews versus Goyim. Tony Blair is a Jerusalemite. Hillary Clinton is a Jerusalemite. Theresa May is a Jerusalemite. And I tell you something else. Even Jeremy Corbyn, unfortunately, is a bit of a Jerusalemite. And it's very sad, because if he wasn't, I would be very happy. Now I'm slightly happy because I hope that he's going to win, but he's still a Jerusalemite. Now, devastatingly enough, the progressives, the people who know how to move the world forward, the liberals, are unfortunately Jerusalemites. They always know what is right and what is wrong, who is right and who is wrong, and those who are wrong are always happen to be fascists, white supremacists, Nazis. Clinton called them a basket of deplorables. This is the complete opposite of Athens. If you don't agree with some people, or you don't approve of their views, learn to debate it. Athens is where we learned how to debate, and we lost this quality in this country in the West. The best thing that happened in this country came from Athens. The disasters in which we are living is the product of Jerusalemification.
Okay. Another pairing, if you like, which is in the book, which are not as opposites in this case, is you talk quite a lot about identitarianism and about political correctness. Now, for many people reading this book, political correctness is not seen as a bad thing, nor is it seen as a bad thing to belong to an identified group that you relate to and that helps condition your thinking. But in your book, these are things to be avoided in a society, is that right?
More or less. It is quite easy to explain. We all accept that political correctness and identity politics were introduced because we had problems in Western society, in this country, in the United States, in other European countries. We had issues, troubling issues to do with racism, with discrimination. However, now we are living in a devastating condition that I would call, or would name, tyranny of correctness. And this is very problematic. What is the definition of political correctness? Political correctness is politics that doesn't allow political opposition. Now, politics that doesn't allow political opposition is tyranny. But political correctness is way more dangerous than tyranny. And the reason is because in the case of tyranny, you oppose an entity, whether it is a tyrant or a party or a regime, that is exterior to yourself. In the case of political correctness, you're dealing with self-suppression. We have this kind of small gadget installed in our brain, and instead of saying what you think, you are trained to say what you don't think. So if you see a woman with You see, I have to think whether I cannot say a woman with incredibly beautiful boobs, because you reduce a woman into a sex object. But I'm a man. I find it exciting. You cannot say it. Next time, you don't even think about it. And the third time, you don't think at all. We are turned into zombies, intellectual zombies. 3 days ago, 5 days ago, a week ago, our great Jeremy Corbyn, we were announcing at 7 o'clock, my son is here, told me, Daddy is going to say what you were waiting for him to say. He's going to speak about the foreign wars, that all those attacks that we are subject to are because of foreign wars. And it's true, there are foreign wars, but is it the best way to describe what happened in Iraq, what happened in Syria, what happened in Libya? No, these are Israeli wars, Zionist wars, Jewish wars. It is a Jewish lobby that pushed us into Iraq, into Syria, pushing us into Iran, not successfully, but they are working on it. If Jeremy Corbyn, the hero of the left, cannot call a spade, who can? This is political correctness. This is tyranny of correctness. Identity politics, again, very simple. When we were young, the good old left united us. They told us it doesn't matter if you're a Jew, Irish, gay, black, Pakistani, Muslim, we are all together against the bad guys. This was very exciting. I was excited by it for at least 2 weeks when I was 16 years old. And then, at a certain stage, they started to divide us. They taught us to think as a Muslim, as a Jew, as a woman, as a lesbian, as a transsexual. It was very difficult for me to start to think as a transsexual. But I can do it. Instead of fighting the bad guys and make sure that we have proper education, proper health services, and manufacturing, we learned to fight each other. So the gays are fighting the gays are fighting for the rights, and the Jews are fighting everybody else, and we are not allowed to talk about it. No, society cannot be managed and move itself forward within this condition. And what we saw in the last American election is a clear division between the Americans, those who identify themselves primarily as Americans, and those who identify primarily as identitarians, Puerto Rican, black, Jews, feminists, lesbians, transsexual, and so on and so on. And as we could see, it was a real clear split in America. Half of the Americans, or half the American voters, want to identify as identitarians. The rest want to identify with a state, with something that unites people. And I believe that as things stand now, we need to be united. Because even if you are a gay or a Jew or a black, you have to make sure that you have a reason to wake up in the morning. That Britain is a manufacturing power again. My car, my engine is gone, and I'm driving kind of a courtesy car for 2 weeks. It's an old Rover 75. It sounded, I'm going to talk about cars for a second. I never had a British car in my life. They're strange cars. Why should you drive a British car if you can have a Toyota? It's the best car I've ever had. The other day we were driving from Edinburgh to London in one go, 20 minutes. How could the Brits let their incredible car industry evaporate? It's evaporated. My piano tuner told me that when he came to London, there were 20 piano factories in London. There is not one. He used to make clarinets. He used to make so many things. And the meaning of it is that you add a reason to wake up in the morning, and you had enough money to come to listen to Gilad playing a concert in Pizza Express. And this is something that we have lost thanks to identity politics and the new left. Now, I blame the left for it, but it's not really the left, it's not really left's fault, because the left was actually hijacked. Now, you are a Palestinian. We are in a Palestinian restaurant today, and we are going to have the best food ever. They're really good at it. My argument is, thanks to the domination of Jerusalem, by now we are all Palestinians. And this is one of my most important messages. And this is thanks to the fact that we were divided and controlled by means of political correctness.
I'm going to ask a final question, which in a sense is the most important one as far as the book is concerned, which is, so far you've talked about Jews as one of a group of one of the identity groups. But in fact, Jews and Zionism play a much more important part in your survey of world politics than just being a group of people who speak as a Jew. Can you elaborate on that and tell me why that is such a strong thread running through the book?
You insist to get me into trouble. The book is divided into two. First half, I explore the post-political condition, and I come to a conclusion that it's political correctness, identity politics, that left us pretty much without the necessary means to fight those invasive ideologies. The second half of the book, I actually try to understand how is it possible that at the center of this transition we see so many Jewish intellectuals. I try to analyze what is the secret, why Jews are so dominant within those intellectual shifts, why they are so dominant in lobbying. How is it possible that every topic that is problematic in our society, whether we are talking about neoconservative wars or media domination, is becoming an internal Jewish debate? Even Palestine, and this is a very interesting test case, even Palestine is now an internal Jewish discourse. When I kind of joined the solidarity movement, it was very clear the Palestine cause was all about the right of return. Nobody speaks about the right of return now, the right of return of the Palestinian people to the land that belongs to them and no one else, really. Instead of talking about the right of return, we are talking, what we see now is two Jews debating on the right to BDS to boycott, to divest or to sanction Israel. It became a kind of a marginal debate. How did they manage to turn the discourse of the oppressed into a discourse that is primarily sensitive to issues that bothers the oppressor? This is exactly what I try to do in this book. And I come to a conclusion that Jewish elite is so successful because they use some interesting tactics, strategies, but also they are very clever, and you cannot take it from them. They are very clever because they have developed those strategies, those tactics, many years. It's them in doing that actually, going back to the wandering who. I'll just mention it for 30 seconds. Jews, or Judaism as we know it, was born in Babylon. The conditions in Babylon were very similar to the conditions of Europe in the 19th century. Assimilation, very successful assimilation. In 19th century Europe, Jews can stop being Jews and join the Germans, the French, the Brits, and so on and so on. This led to the creation of Zionism. Some Jews started to panic about the idea that Jews may disappear. They'll become Germans, French, and so on and so on. This is exactly what we see in Babylon 2,500 years ago. They invent a religion that will sustain the Jews as Jews. And because they are in exile, it is an exilic religion. So we have in this room people from Iran and from Iraq and Palestinians. For you, Karl, being exilic is a 70 years experience. For the black who came to this country after the war, we are talking about 60, 70 years. If you want to be as good as me in being exilic, you'll have to train for 3,000 years. All right? And you can do it. I promise you, you can do it. You can do it, but by the time you come back, I'll be kind of 6,000 years, you know? So it's just the only culture, only exilic culture operating within the West. And though other identities are quick to learn, this is exactly why they're slightly more sophisticated on that front. That's it.
Okay, well, are you happy to stop here, or do you want
I don't know where we're standing with the falafel. If you want, we can take 2 questions if you want.
Yeah, let me say one thing, which is that the books are for sale at the back. In fact, everything on that table, books and CDs, they're all £10 each, and you can have 5 for £30. And if there are any questions, Gilad will be happy to ask. There's one over there.
Yeah.
Yes, your book title echoes that of the Martin Heidegger Being in Time of 90 years ago. Would you like to comment on this? Intentional?
Yes, it's more than intentional.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. The title of the book, Being in Time, is slightly resembled Heidegger's title, Being End Time. I definitely played with these words. I'm very, very inspired by Martin Heidegger, and I explain in the book why it happened. I am a reactionary essentialist. I believe, as opposed to progressive revolutionaries, I believe that in order to understand who we are, we have to dig into the essence. Now, this is something that is happening in this country naturally. Those who insist upon leaving the EU are engaged in a mild attempt to redefine themselves for what they are, as opposed to as a. The Israelis, by the way, Zionism is a great success because it told the Jews, rather than talking as a Jew, come to Israel and be a Jew. By the way, ISIS, the Islamic State, is selling exactly the same product. Rather than talking as a Muslim in Britain or in France or in America, that means nothing. It means that your wife cannot walk with a burqa, they can strip in the seashore by the French police. Come to Raqqa and be a Muslim. And I, by the way, don't try to tell you that this is Islam or this is what Islam represents. But this is what ISIS, this is the product that ISIS is selling. I think that we are about to encounter an existential shift. We see it in politics. This is why we are excited by Corbyn. This is why many Americans were excited by Trump. This is why many French people are excited by Le Pen. This is why we see nationalism back. So being in time is understanding where we are and where we are aiming. In reference to Heidegger existentialist philosophy. Maybe one more question, yeah.
You spoke about the American election, the success of Trump being because he was voted for by people that saw themselves as part of a united nation as against identity groups.
Yeah.
Surely, I mean, you missed out one big identity group, namely white people, and I would suggest that that's why he was elected, because he appealed to white Americans.
I totally agree, and this is a criticism that I encounter quite often, and it's probably going to be slightly disappointing for many of you, or some of you here. I oppose all forms of identity politics, not just gays, black, Jewish, also white. And the reason is very simple. I'm a saxophonist. I don't identify as a saxophonist. You know that I'm a saxophonist. In 20 minutes, I don't know, I'll play the saxophone, and it will be clear that I'm a saxophonist. If I start to identify as a saxophonist, the next thing that I'll have to do, I'll have to start to ask myself, as a saxophonist, what should I say when the, all right? It introduces a new element that removes us from authenticity. However, I'll be very clear about it. If Jews can identify with their alleged biology, the blood of the mother or whatever, because Jews are really not a race, but Jewish politics is always racist. And if black can identify with their biology, and some do, and if women can identify with their biology, and transsexual can identify with their biology, clearly, white people can also identify with their biology, and there is, if they see it as such, and there is a lot of cultural asset and and ancestry, they can do that. If the left want to keep us within this identity slippery slope, white people can definitely join them and play with their identity, with their white identity issues. I definitely don't have an argument about it. My argument against identity is a universal argument. We have to move on and find what it is that unites us all, so we can move this society forward. And now, those people who identify with their skin, with their white skin, I think that they can offer us something slightly deeper, actually. There are a lot of great things that England or Britain can offer. I came to this country because it was an Athenian haven. I'm here for 25 years or 22 years, and it's more Jerusalemite than Jerusalem. All right? You are more Palestinian than the Palestinians. Maramia, they are now maybe considered to go back to Gaza. All right? This is our war, and we can win this war together. Thank you.